What's up, my people? Week 8 of the Flea Flicker with Jackson Kane. I am trying out my new video camera on my new laptop. Looks great. Let's get started. All right, so QB love this week. Aaron Rodgers at Atlanta. Um, Atlanta, fourth worst fantasy defense against quarterbacks this year. They've allowed the fourth most 20-plus yard plays with 26. So start Aaron Rodgers. He's coming off that good game against Chicago. So he's got a hot streak going. Jameis Winston versus Oakland. Oakland, only team allowing over 300 yards passing this year. They're tied for the league lead in 40-plus yard passing plays allowed with 9, and they lead the league with 32 20-plus yard passing plays. So start Jameis Winston. Carson Wentz at Dallas. Cowboys are allowing 266 passing yards per game, and only 6 teams have less sacks than Dallas, who has 11. So I'm going to say Carson Wentz has a bounce-back game after that horrendous Minnesota game. They still won, but bounce-back game. QB hate this week. Jay Cutler versus Minnesota. Poor Jay Cutler. Comes back to face probably the best defense in all of the NFL. Minnesota has allowed just 5 passing TDs this year. No team has allowed less 20-plus yard passing plays in Minnesota. They've only allowed 12. Phillip Rivers at Denver. He only managed 166 passing yards. Their first game, which was 2 weeks ago, they played each other. And this week he's he's at Denver, so doesn't fare well for him. Drew Brees versus Seattle. Seahawks are one of 3 teams to have allowed just 4 passing TDs this year, and they also have recorded 20 sacks. So I'd stay away from Drew Brees. All right, wide receiver love this week. Stephon Diggs at Chicago. Bears have given up 120 completions to wide receivers. That's 10 more than the second-place team, LA Rams. I expect Minnesota to get extra possessions by taking the ball away from Jay Cutler and Chicago. Brandon Marshall / Quincy Enunwa at Cleveland. I like saying Enunwa. It's funny. Browns are tied with the Lions for the most passing TDs allowed, 18, and I expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to try to prove himself this week, so I expect a good outing from him. Fourth guy, DeAndre Hopkins versus Detroit. He's had a rough go this year, but the Lions are giving up 24 fantasy points on average to wideouts, and they're tied for most passing TDs allowed with the Cleveland Browns, who I just said, with 18. So I like DeAndre Hopkins. Wide receiver hate this week. Alshon Jeffrey versus the Minnesota Vikings. Vikes only allowed 70 completions and 3 TDs to the position this year. All Vikings have allowed to the position, like I said just now. Sit Alshon. Dez Bryant versus Philly. Just 204 receiving yards allowed per game. That's what Philly gives up. And he's coming off a knee injury. May take a week or 2 to get back in the swing of things. Travis Benjamin at Denver. Broncos surrender an average of just 8.1 fantasy points total to wide receivers on the year per game. So really tough matchup. They've only allowed 62 completions to the position, which is lowest in the league. RB love this week. Christine Michael at New Orleans. They're the worst fantasy defense against running backs. They've allowed 11 rushing TDs, which is the most in the league. Devontae Booker versus San Diego. I like him. I love him, actually. He's on one of my teams. I'm a big Devontae Booker fan. Chargers have allowed 4 yards per rush this year. C.J. Anderson may be out for the entire year, so go scoop him up if you haven't. I expect a huge workload for him in this game. Jeremy Hill / Gio Bernard versus Washington. The Redskins have allowed 120 rushing yards per game, and they're one of 3 teams to allow over 5 yards per rush this year. So love that combo. Hate for running backs this week. Jonathan Stewart versus Arizona. They're the second best fantasy defense against opposing backs. They've allowed just 4 rushing TDs this year. Jordan Howard versus Minnesota. They're playing the Vikings. That's all you need to know. That's what I have written here. Anybody against the Vikings is a bad call. Ryan Matthews at Dallas. Dallas is allowing 11.7 fantasy points on average to the position. They've allowed just 2 rushing touchdowns and no receiving to opposing backs. All right, tight end, love C.J. Fedorowicz versus Detroit. Detroit's allowed 423 yards and a league-leading 7 TDs to tight ends this year. Travis Kelce at Indianapolis. Only 2 teams have allowed more receptions by tight ends than Indy's 41. Jordan Reed at Cincy. They've allowed 14 passing TDs this year, and they're 8th worst against tight ends. Tight end hate. Jason Witten versus Philly. Philly, they've only allowed 13 receptions to tight ends this year, lowest in the league, and add in that they're first against opposing QBs in fantasy, so that's why I don't like Dez or Jason Witten this week. Kobe Fleener versus Seattle, 4.5 fantasy points to tight ends on average for Seattle, and just 226 passing yards allowed per contest. Zach Miller versus Minnesota. Hopefully you've noticed a theme. Don't start anyone against the Vikings. And I just realized that I forgot to do my bold predictions, chance to dance, and waste of space. So I will comment that under this video. Thanks for watching, guys. Reminder, don't forget, Sunday there's another London game, so get your Redskins and Bengals in or out of your lineups. So just a reminder on that. Yes, I will comment my chance to dance, waste of space, and 3 bold predictions later. But thanks for watching, guys. Good luck in week 8, and have a good one.